China's financial capital is collapsing. 70% of Shanghai's residents have been infected with the Wuhan virus. I repeat, 70%. That's the claim of a top doctor. Is this doomsday? Well, I don't see why not. Shanghai has a population of 26.3 million. Of them, 20 million people are infected. This is as grim as it gets. And for China, it means a double whammy. Its healthcare takes a hit. Its economy suffers as well. China relies on Shanghai for growth. Shanghai also has the largest GDP of all Chinese cities. We are looking at 4.32 trillion yuan, or $679 billion. Shanghai has the world's third largest stock market. Some 800 MNCs have regional or country headquarters here. 70,000 non-Chinese companies have offices here. If Shanghai falls, China's place in the global economy falls. Its claim as the world's factory falls. And guess what? Shanghai has fallen. And China is silent, like it has been for a while now. Silent on the number of cases, silent on the real number of deaths. Too bad China's actions are speaking on Beijing's behalf. The message is one of panic. As I speak, China is carrying out sewage surveillance. What is that? The wastewater from toilets and sinks is being tested. Next question, why? Because some experts believe water data can actually detect infections before clinical data. Does science back this claim? Hardly. But it's not like China is spoiled for choice here. Its healthcare system has clearly collapsed. Else it would not need to snoop around people's wastewater. Think of it this way, if 70% Shanghai residents are infected, what are the chances other cities would be any different? So let's take a conservative estimate. Let's assume that 50% of the people in other cities and counties are infected. That adds up to almost 50% of 1.4 billion. Do the math. The result is a disaster, one that's very much in line with what the world was expecting. Jeffrey Shaman, an epidemiologist at Columbia University, for example, recently told a news outlet that he expects up to 900 million infections in China in 2023. 900 million. Does China have the capacity to cater to the healthcare needs of these many people? The answer is simple, and it is a no. Chinese President Xi Jinping knows that. And so he has conveniently given up, flung open the border gates, and watching the dance of disaster unfold. Chinese propaganda outlets disagree. Allow me to pull out one of today's headlines. China Daily claims China's pandemic fight is praiseworthy. Name one credible country that's praising China. None. Let's get this straight. Everything about China's handling of the Wuhan virus has been disastrous. It hid the outbreak, it hid the virus's origin, also the inefficiency of its vaccines. And then China's COVID policy boomeranged. But the China Daily insists the visionary leadership of President Xi Jinping has protected the Chinese people from the worst effects of the virus, quote unquote. It wishes. I ask China Daily a very simple question. How does it explain what's happening in Shanghai? The city had its share of draconian lockdowns. For 2 months, the residents were locked up, many without basic necessities. The promise that was sold to them was that the lockdown was necessary to avert a disaster. Few months on, 70% of the residents are sick. And I'll tell you why. Because the only thing China's zero COVID policy has achieved was to delay the infections. Delay is the key word here. All this while, China's plan has been to push the impact of the Wuhan virus into the future. And now that future has arrived, and China's funeral homes are full. We have been showing you those videos. What's happening in China today is because Xi Jinping was too proud to accept vaccines made elsewhere, too proud to ask for help or respect the rules.
我们愿同国际社会加强沟通。
We also believe that the entry restrictions that some countries imposed only on China lack scientific basis. Some excessive practices are simply unacceptable.
Sounds ironic when China talks about scientific unknowns, does it not? And speaking of scientific unknowns, on the first day of the year, Global Times said the infection peak is expected to end soon. As early as, quote unquote, around New Year Day. This was on the first day of the year. And Global Times backed its confusing claim with an unnamed mathematical model. It is the 3rd of January and the Wuhan virus has infected the dragon's den. Patients are flooding the hospitals. In Shanghai, the city's elderly are gasping for breath. They have cramped hospital corridors.
A new wave of significant data has come out after the reopening. There will be some data that is not reported. There is definitely no way around this.
China knows that too well. It has deployed Chinese state media to hide the truth with fake news. The People's Daily quoted a vice president of a Beijing hospital as saying, severe and critical illnesses account for 3% to 4% of infected patients currently admitted to designated hospitals in Beijing. Another hospital official from Sichuan apparently said just 46 patients were admitted to the ICU in 3 weeks. Now, my question to China is simple. Who exactly are you trying to kid here?